I sent my birthday invites first. 2 weeks later, my brother announced his barbecue party. On the same day, not a single person from my family came to my birthday, not even my wife and daughter. As I cut the cake, my wife texted, "Call me. Urgent." I looked at the message and smiled. 52 missed calls. You know what's funny about planning your own birthday? You start with this ridiculous optimism like some kind of delusional Hallmark card come to life. There I was, 3 weeks out, scrolling through restaurant websites like I was planning the damn Academy Awards. I had it all mapped out in my head. The perfect evening at Marcellos's, this cozy little Italian joint downtown where the breadsticks are warm and the wine doesn't cost more than my mortgage payment. Simple but meaningful, right? That's what I kept telling myself as I sent out those invites. God, I was such a sucker. I actually spent 45 minutes crafting the perfect text message to my family. Casual enough that they wouldn't think I was desperate, but specific enough that they'd know this mattered to me. Hey everyone, birthday dinner at Marcellos's on Saturday the 18th, 7:00 p.m. Hope to see you there. Complete with that stupid smiley face emoji that I immediately regretted, but was too proud to follow up with a correction. The responses came in like clockwork. Mom, sounds lovely, sweetheart. Dad, looking forward to it, son. My brother Ryan hit me back with a thumbs up emoji, which in retrospect should have been my first red flag. When has Ryan ever been that efficient with communication? The guy takes 3 business days to respond to what's up. Julia wasn't on it from the beginning. Obviously, she had to be. We share a damn calendar app. Every doctor's appointment, every parent-teacher conference, every oil change is color-coded and synced between our phones like we're running some kind of suburban corporation. She knew about my birthday dinner the second I booked the reservation. Hell, she probably got the notification before I did. And Sophie, my sweet 16-year-old daughter, who suddenly thinks I'm about as cool as a fanny pack at a music festival. Even she seemed genuinely excited. That sounds really nice, Dad, she said, looking up from her phone for approximately 3 seconds, which for Sophie basically constitutes a standing ovation. So, there I was, riding high on this wave of family togetherness, already picturing the Instagram-worthy moment when they'd bring out the cake and everyone would sing that awkward happy birthday song that somehow gets slower and more off-key with every verse. I even had Julia call ahead to make sure they had those little sparkler candles. You know, the ones that make everything look festive, but are actually a fire hazard waiting to happen. The week leading up to my birthday, I was like a kid counting down to Christmas. I caught myself humming in the shower, being extra nice to my coworkers, even letting that jackass Henderson cut in line at the coffee shop because, hey, life was good. My family was going to be there. We were going to laugh, share stories, and for one night, I was going to be the center of attention in the best possible way. Saturday rolled around, and I spent the morning cleaning the house like Martha Stewart was coming for inspection. Because after dinner, everyone was going to come back here for cake. Real cake. Not some grocery store sheet cake with flowers that looked like they were drawn by a colorblind toddler, but actual honest-to-God chocolate cake from that bakery Julia loves. The one where a single cupcake costs more than most people's lunch, but whatever. It was my birthday, and I was feeling generous. By 6 ago, I was dressed in my best button-down, the navy one Julia bought me for Christmas that supposedly makes my eyes pop, and checking my watch every 30 seconds, like I was expecting the president to show up. The reservation was at 70, which meant we'd all meet there at 7:15 because nobody in my family has ever been on time for anything except their own funerals. And even then, I have my doubts. 7:15 came and went. Then 7:30. By 7:45, I was sitting alone at a table for 8, watching the waiter refill my water glass with the kind of pity usually reserved for abandoned puppies. My phone sat on the table like a dead fish, stubbornly silent, except for the occasional notification from some app one downloaded and immediately forgot about. That's when my colleagues started showing up. Bless their hearts, they actually remembered. Jim from accounting appeared first, looking slightly confused about why he was the only one there, followed by Sarah from HR with a bottle of wine she probably picked up at the gas station on the way over. Then the Hendersons from next door shuffled in, looking around like they'd walked into the wrong movie theater. "Where is everyone?" Sarah asked, settling into the chair that was supposed to be Mom's. "Running late?" I lied, raising my water glass in a mock toast. You know how family is. But I knew deep down in that part of your gut where bad news lives before your brain catches up. I already knew they weren't coming. The silence from my phone wasn't traffic delays or last-minute emergencies. It was abandonment with a smile and a thumbs-up emoji. We ordered appetizers. We made small talk about the weather and the latest office drama. Jim told that story about his son's Little League game for the 3rd time this month. And I laughed in all the right places because that's what you do when you're desperately trying to pretend your heart isn't slowly cracking like old paint on a porch railing. By 8:30, the waiter brought out my cake. Those sparkler candles I was so excited about flickered and danced while my makeshift family of coworkers and neighbors sang happy birthday, with the enthusiasm of people attending a mandatory corporate seminar. I smiled and made a wish. Probably something pathetic like, "Let this night end soon," and blew out the candles to polite applause. The silence that followed was deafening. Not the comfortable silence of people enjoying each other's company, but the awkward, heavy silence of people who suddenly realize they're witnessing something deeply sad and don't know whether to acknowledge it or pretend everything's fine. That's when my phone finally bust. You want to know the exact moment I should have seen this train wreck coming? It was 2 weeks after I sent out those birthday invites. Sitting in Mom's kitchen on a Sunday afternoon, watching her fuss over a pot roast like she was performing heart surgery. The whole family was there for one of those mandatory weekly dinners that somehow became a thing after Dad's heart scare last year. Because nothing says we care about your health like forcing everyone to gather around a table loaded with enough carbs to fuel a small aircraft. I was actually feeling pretty good about life. My birthday invites have been out in the universe for 14 whole days, and nobody had bailed yet. Sure, nobody had RSVP'd either. But in my family, silence basically means, yeah, I'll be there. Unless someone's actively bleeding or getting divorced. I was leaning back in one of Mom's creaky kitchen chairs, the ones she refuses to replace because they have character, which is Mom speak for. I'm too stubborn to admit these things are older than disco. That's when Ryan waltzed in with that eating grin he's been perfecting since middle school. You know the one. Half smugness, half I'm about to ruin your day and enjoy every second of it. He was carrying a 12-pack of Corona like he was bringing frankincense to the manger. And Mom immediately lit up like he'd just announced he was running for Pope. "Ryan, honey, you're just in time. I was telling your father about Mrs. Henderson's new fence situation." But Ryan wasn't listening to Mom's riveting saga about property lines and homeowner association drama. No, sir. Ryan had bigger fish to fry. He cracked open a beer because apparently 5 Suaug starts at noon on Sundays in Ryan's world and cleared his throat like he was about to deliver the Gettysburg Address. "Actually, Mom, I've got some news," he announced, taking a theatrical swig of his beer. "I'm throwing a party." Now, in any normal family, this would have been met with mild interest and maybe a request for details. But this is the family where Ryan once got a standing ovation for successfully parallel parking. So naturally, Mom practically fell off her chair with excitement. A party? How wonderful. What's the occasion? And here it comes, folks. The moment my perfectly planned birthday dinner got nuked from orbit. Just a grand barbecue party, Ryan said, grinning wider than the Grand Canyon. Next Saturday, the 18th. Figured it was time to show everyone how it's really done. The 18th. The exact same day as my birthday dinner. The date that had been marked on the family calendar since the moment I sent those invites. The date that everyone, and I mean everyone, knew was my birthday. I felt my stomach drop somewhere around my ankles. Ryan, I said, trying to keep my voice level. That's my birthday. We're having dinner at Marcellos's, remember? Ryan looked at me with the kind of innocent confusion that Oscar winners would kill for. Oh, that's right. Well, it's just a barbecue, man. Lighten up, lighten up, lighten up. Like I was some uptight corporate drone getting bent out of shape over a scheduling conflict, instead of his older brother who just watched his birthday get steamrolled by a guy who once called me crying because he couldn't figure out how to work his coffee maker. But everyone's already committed to I started committed. Ryan laughed, and it wasn't his usual good-natured chuckle. This was different. Sharper. Come on, bro. It's not like you're getting married again. It's just dinner. Just dinner, right? Just the dinner I've been planning for weeks. Just the one night a year when I'd hoped to be the center of attention for reasons other than fixing someone else's problems or mediating someone else's drama. But here's where it gets really good. Instead of backing down or maybe suggesting a different date, Ryan doubled down like he was playing poker with someone else's money. Besides, he continued, warming up to his theme, I've already put deposits down on everything. The pavilion at Riverside Park, the catering truck, the whole 9 yards. This is going to be epic. Epic. Because apparently my little brother had decided to turn my birthday into some kind of competition, and he was planning to win by throwing money at it like a drunk lottery winner. Mom, bless her traitorous little heart, was practically vibrating with excitement. Ryan, that sounds absolutely wonderful. How thoughtful of you to plan something so elaborate. Thoughtful. Let me repeat that for the people in the back. Thoughtful. Planning a massive party on your brother's birthday and calling it thoughtful is like setting someone's car on fire and calling it a surprise car wash. I don't know, son. Dad piped up from his recliner, where he'd been pretending to watch golf while obviously listening to every word. Your brother's already got something planned. For a brief shining moment, I thought Dad was going to stick up for me. Maybe point out that hijacking someone's birthday is generally considered a dick move in most civilized societies. But then Ryan pulled out the big guns. Dad, think about it. When's the last time we had a real family gathering? Something where everyone could just relax, have a few beers, maybe throw a football around. Remember how much fun we used to have at those summer cookouts when we were kids? And just like that, Dad was putty in his hands. Ryan had triggered the magical remember when response that turns grown men into nostalgic marshmallows. Dad's face went all soft and misty-eyed, like he was watching a particularly touching commercial about golden retrievers. Well, Dad said slowly, it would be nice to have everyone together. Everyone together at Ryan's party on my birthday, while I sat alone at Marcellos's, explaining to the waiter why I needed to cancel 6 of the 8 seats at my reservation. Great, Ryan said, clapping his hands together like he'd just solved world hunger. I'll start making calls. This is going to be the party of the year. Mom was already pulling out her phone, probably to start texting every relative within a 50-mile radius. Should I call Aunt Martha? Oh, and what about the Petersons? They love a good barbecue. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just Ryan being thoughtless or accidentally stepping on my plans. This was strategic. He'd waited exactly 2 weeks after my invites went out. Long enough for everyone to know about my dinner, but not long enough for anyone to feel locked in. He'd positioned his party as the fun alternative to my just dinner. He'd even chosen a venue that could accommodate the entire extended family, plus half the neighborhood. I was watching a masterclass in birthday assassination, and my own family was cheering from the sidelines. Julia, who'd been unusually quiet during this whole exchange, finally spoke up. "Well, we'll still come to your dinner," she said to me. But even as the words left her mouth, I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. She was already calculating the social cost of missing Ryan's epic barbecue to sit through a quiet dinner with my coworkers. "Of course we will," she added. But it sounded like someone agreeing to attend a mandatory workplace sensitivity training. So, here's how it all went down on the night that was supposed to be my night. Picture this. Me sitting at Marcelos's in that navy button-down that supposedly makes my eyes pop, surrounded by the warm glow of candlelight that I'd specifically requested because I thought it would make for better photos. You know, the kind of photos that show a man celebrating with the people who matter most to him. Instead, I got the kind of lighting that makes you look like you're attending your own wake. The restaurant was perfect. I'll give it that. Marcelo had outdone himself with the ambiance. Soft jazz playing just loud enough to fill the conversation gaps. The smell of garlic and basil floating through the air like some kind of aromatic hug, and our table positioned right by the window so we could watch the world go by while we celebrated another year of my existence. Too bad the only people watching the world go by were my coworkers and the Hendersons from next door, who kept glancing at their phones like they were expecting a better invitation to materialize. Jim from accounting was doing his best to keep the mood light, regaling us with stories about his weekend golf game that nobody asked for. But everyone politely endured. So there I was, standing over this impossible putt. And I'm thinking to myself, "Jim, this is it. This is your moment of glory." And on he went. While I checked my phone for the 100th time, hoping against hope that maybe Julia had sent some kind of explanation for why my own family had collectively decided to ghost me on my birthday. Sarah from HR had brought that gas station wine I mentioned, and God bless her, she was trying to turn it into something celebratory. "This is actually quite nice," she lied, taking another sip of what was clearly the liquid equivalent of regret. Very bold. The Hendersons were doing that thing older couples do, where they communicate entirely through meaningful looks and subtle head tilts. I caught Mrs. Henderson giving her husband the universal, "Should we ask about the family?" eyebrow raise, and Mr. Henderson responding with the equally universal, "Absolutely not" head shake. They'd lived next door to us long enough to know that family drama was like quicksand. The more you struggled with it, the deeper you sank. By 8 weeks, I'd given up pretending that anyone else was coming. The empty chairs around our table weren't fashionably late. They were just empty. Each vacant seat felt like a personal rejection, a physical manifestation of exactly how much I mattered to the people who were supposed to matter most to me. Julia's chair sat there, mocking me with its perfectly arranged place setting. Sophie's spot by the window, where she always liked to sit so she could people watch and pretend she wasn't listening to adult conversation, remained untouched. Even Mom's chair, which I'd positioned at what I thought would be the head of the table, stood as a monument to my own pathetic optimism. The waiter, Giovanni, according to his name tag, had been shooting me sympathetic looks all evening. He was probably in his 20s with that earnest enthusiasm that only comes from either being new to the service industry or being professionally Italian. Every time he passed our table, I could see him doing the math. Counting the empty chairs against the reservation, he'd probably written down his birthday party table of 8. Perhaps the others will arrive soon, he'd suggested hopefully around 7:30. Refilling my water glass for the 4th time. Yeah, I'd replied. Any minute now. But minutes turned into an hour, and hope turned into that familiar sting of disappointment that sits right behind your sternum like heartburn. Except antacids can't fix this particular burn. The conversation at our makeshift table had taken on that forced quality that happens when everyone's trying really hard to pretend everything is normal, while the elephant in the room gets bigger and starts doing the Macarena. We'd exhausted Jim's golf stories, Sarah's latest binge-watching recommendations, and the Hendersons' detailed analysis of their neighbors' new landscaping choices. We were officially running on conversational fumes. That's when Giovanni approached with the cake. Now, let me tell you about this cake. This wasn't just any cake. This was the chocolate masterpiece from Delacroix Bakery that cost more than most people's car payment. 3 layers of dark chocolate heaven with salted caramel filling and enough ganache to make a grown man weep tears of pure joy. I'd ordered it 2 weeks ago, back when I still believed in things like family loyalty and birthday magic. The baker had even written "Happy Birthday" in elegant script across the top, probably assuming it would be surrounded by smiling faces and heartfelt wishes. Instead, it was surrounded by my accountant, my HR rep, and 2 neighbors who were clearly wondering if it would be rude to check the time on their phones. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. Sometimes it gives you a weird kind of clarity. As Giovanni set that beautiful cake down in front of me, complete with those sparkler candles that I'd been so excited about, something shifted inside my chest. Not the crushing weight of disappointment I'd been carrying all evening, but something lighter, something almost liberating. The sparklers caught fire with that satisfying hiss and pop that never gets old, casting dancing shadows across the faces of the people who had bothered to show up. These people, Jim with his terrible golf stories, Sarah with her gas station wine, the Hendersons with their meaningful looks. They were here not because they had to be, not because of family obligation or social expectation, but because they'd made the choice to celebrate with me. "Make a wish," Sarah said, raising her glass of questionable wine. And you know what I did? I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, made a wish that surprised even me. I didn't wish for my family to suddenly appear with sheepish apologies and elaborate explanations. I didn't wish for Ryan's barbecue to get rained out or for Julia to have a sudden attack of conscience. I wished for the strength to stop caring so goddamn much. The singing started, then that gloriously awkward rendition of "Happy Birthday" that somehow gets slower and more off-key every year of your life. But this time it sounded different. Maybe because the voices singing it actually wanted to be there. Maybe because there was something honest about this ragtag group of people who'd shown up just because they liked me, not because DNA or marriage certificates obligated them to. I blew out the candles to genuine applause, and for about 30 seconds, I felt something that might have been contentment. The cake was as amazing as advertised. The company was surprisingly pleasant, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe this birthday wouldn't be a complete disaster. That's when my phone started buzzing against the table like an angry hornet. The phone was doing that thing where it vibrates so aggressively against the table that it starts walking across the surface like some kind of electronic crab having a seizure. Everyone at the table was staring at it, not because they wanted to be nosy, but because it was impossible to ignore the urgent, panicked buzzing that was cutting through our little birthday bubble like a chainsaw through tissue paper. I picked it up and nearly choked on my bite of $70 chocolate cake. 52 missed calls, 50, 2, all from Julia. Now, let me put this in perspective for you. In the 15 years I've been married to this woman, The most missed calls I've ever had from her was maybe 8. And that was when Sophie broke her arm falling off her bike and needed emergency surgery. 52 missed calls is apocalypse-level communication. This is the kind of phone activity that suggests either the house is on fire, someone's in the hospital, or the zombie apocalypse has finally kicked off and she needs to coordinate our survival strategy. The voicemail notifications were stacked up like pancakes at a Sunday brunch. Each little red number taunting me with the urgent desperation of whatever crisis was unfolding in real time, while I'd been sitting here eating cake and pretending everything was fine. "Everything okay?" Sarah asked, because apparently my face had gone through enough color changes to qualify as a mood ring. "Yeah," I lied, looking at that glowing screen full of digital panic. Just Julia. Just Julia. As if those 2 words could possibly explain the magnitude of whatever Kirk's storm was brewing on the other end of those 52 unanswered calls. As if I could casually dismiss the fact that my wife, who was supposed to be at my birthday dinner right now, was apparently having some kind of communication meltdown while attending my brother's rival party. The phone buzzed again. Call 53. I stared at that incoming call. Julia's smiling face filling the screen with a photo from our anniversary dinner last year, back when she still looked at me like I was someone worth celebrating instead of someone whose birthday you could blow off for better barbecue. Her contact name glowed at the top. Julia Red Art, with that little heart emoji I'd added back when we were still in the phase of our marriage where we put hearts after each other's names instead of just grimly accepting each other's existence. Everyone was watching me now. Not obviously. They were all pretending to be fascinated by their cake or the flickering candle wax, but I could feel their collective attention like heat from a campfire. The weight of expectation, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Are you going to answer it? Here's what I should have done. Any reasonable person would have answered that phone, probably stepped outside to take the call, and found out what earth-shattering emergency required 53 attempts at contact. Any decent husband would have been concerned, maybe even frightened about what could possibly be so urgent that it required this level of communication assault. But you know what? I wasn't feeling particularly reasonable or decent or husband-like. Instead, I looked at that buzzing phone, at Julia's smiling face, mocking me from the screen, and I did something that surprised everyone at the table, including myself. I smiled. Not a fake smile. Not one of those tight-lipped, socially acceptable expressions you paste on when you're pretending everything's fine. This was something else entirely. This was the kind of smile that comes from deep in your chest. The kind that starts as a tiny spark of recognition and spreads across your face like sunrise breaking over a mountain range. I was smiling because I finally got it. The cosmic joke of it all. The beautiful, terrible irony that was my life. Here I was sitting at my own birthday dinner, surrounded by people who had actually chosen to be here. And my wife, who had chosen to be somewhere else entirely, was now desperately trying to drag me into whatever drama was unfolding at the party she'd chosen over me. The phone stopped buzzing. Julia's face disappeared from the screen, replaced by the notification that I now had 53 missed calls and what looked like roughly the same number of voicemails. My phone's battery was probably crying from the workout it had just received. "You're not going to answer?" Jim asked, because Jim has never met a boundary he couldn't accidentally cross with his well-meaning concern. "Nope," I said, cutting another piece of cake. This bite tasted even better than the first one. Maybe because it came with a side of liberation. It's my birthday. And that was it. That was the moment everything changed. Right there between the chocolate ganache and the flickering candlelight. Not with some dramatic declaration or a table-flipping tantrum, but with a simple smile and a piece of cake. The Hendersons exchanged one of their meaningful looks. This one clearly falling into the well, that's interesting category. Sarah raised her glass of questionable wine in what might have been approval or confusion. It was hard to tell. Giovanni appeared at my elbow with a fresh napkin, probably thinking I'd lost my mind entirely. But I hadn't lost my mind. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I'd found it. The phone stayed silent for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Long enough for me to finish my cake and start on a second piece, because why the hell not? Then it started buzzing again. Call 54. This time, I didn't even look at the screen. I just smiled wider and took another bite of cake, savoring the salted caramel filling while my phone vibrated itself into electronic exhaustion on the table. Around me, the conversation gradually resumed, my dinner companions apparently deciding that ignoring ringing phones was a perfectly normal birthday tradition. Call 55, call 56. Each buzz felt like a tiny victory. Proof that whatever chaos was unfolding at Ryan's Grand Barbecue Spectacular, it wasn't my problem, not tonight. Tonight, I was exactly where I was supposed to be, eating overpriced cake with people who had shown up because they wanted to, not because they had to. By the time we reached call 60, even Jim had stopped glancing nervously at my phone. Sarah was telling a surprisingly funny story about her cat's ongoing war with the mailman, and the Hendersons were debating whether to order dessert. Apparently, my chocolate cake had inspired them to embrace the sweet life. I was laughing, actually laughing at Sarah's cat story. When the buzzing finally stopped, my phone screen went dark, and the silence that followed felt rich and full instead of empty and abandoned. This was what peace sounded like. Not the absence of noise, but the absence of obligation to answer every demand for my attention. That's when I realized something that should have been obvious from the beginning. I wasn't the forgotten one tonight. I wasn't the one sitting alone, desperate and abandoned. I was the one who had walked away. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was smiling because I wanted to. You know what's beautiful about modern technology? It lets you experience betrayal in high definition with crystal clearer audio and timestamps that tell you exactly when your life went to hell. I discovered this particular joy the next morning, sitting in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that tasted like bitter truth, scrolling through Julia's voicemails like some kind of masochistic archaeologist digging through the ruins of my marriage. The first few messages were what you'd expect from a wife who'd abandoned her husband's birthday dinner. Standard damage control stuff delivered with that fake cheerful tone that women perfect around the same time they learn to walk in heels without falling on their faces. Hey honey, sorry I missed your call earlier. Ryan's party's going great. Everyone's asking about you. Call me back when you get this. Okay. Love you. Love you. Sure, Julia. Nothing says I love you like ditching your spouse's birthday for better brisket and potato salad. But that was just the appetizer. The real feast of dysfunction was still coming. Message number 4 was where things started getting interesting. The fake cheer was beginning to crack around the edges like cheap paint in a Florida summer. Okay, so listen. We have a tiny situation here. The catering truck broke down about an hour ago, and apparently they can't get another one until tomorrow. People are starting to get hungry, and Ryan's kind of freaking out. Can you maybe call that guy you know who runs the food truck downtown? The one with the tacos? Just call me back, okay? The one with the tacos. She met Miguel, who runs Wheels of Steel Taco Company and happens to be one of my clients. A guy I'd helped secure a small business administration loan last year when his original truck got totaled by a drunk driver. A guy who trusted me, who counted on me, who probably would have moved heaven and earth to help me out if I'd asked. But I wasn't the one asking, was I? Message 7 was where Julia's desperation really started to shine through. The fake cheer had been completely abandoned in favor of what I like to call crisis management mode. That special blend of panic and entitlement that emerges when someone realizes their poorly planned party is about to become a social disaster. Listen, I know you're probably still at dinner, but this is getting bad. Really bad. Ryan spent all his money on the venue and the decorations, and now we have about 60 people here with no food. Your mom is asking where you are, and I don't know what to tell her. Can you please just call Miguel and see if he can come out here? I'll explain everything later, I promise. I'll explain everything later. That's relationship code for I'm going to gaslight you into believing this is somehow your fault. But right now, I need you to fix my problems. The beautiful thing about listening to someone's descent into panic in real time is that you can actually hear the moment when their true priorities reveal themselves. For Julia, that moment came around message 12 when the polite request transformed into something closer to demands. Okay, I've been calling you for 2 hours now, and this is getting ridiculous. I get that you're upset about tonight, but Ryan really needs your help. Everyone is looking at me like I should be able to fix this, and I told them you would know what to do. You always know what to do. So please just pick up the goddamn phone and call Miguel. You always know what to do. Translation. You're really useful when we need something fixed, cleaned up, or paid for. The rest of the time, you're basically furniture that occasionally needs feeding. But wait, it gets better. Message 18 was where Julia completely dropped the pretense of this being about family emergency and revealed what this was really about. Social embarrassment. Her voice had that particular quality that happens when someone realizes they're about to become the subject of neighborhood gossip and not the good kind. The Hendersons just left. The Hendersons. They said they had to get home, but I saw them talking to the Johnsons before they went. And now the Johnsons are looking at their phones and making excuses too. People are starting to leave, and Ryan is just standing there like a deer in headlights. Mom keeps asking why you're not here to help, and I don't know what to say anymore. Please just call me back. Ah, there it is. The truth. Finally. This wasn't about emergency or family crisis. This was about Julia realizing that she'd hitched her wagon to the wrong horse. And now she was watching her social status circle the drain in real time. She'd chosen Ryan's party over my birthday, and now Ryan's party was falling apart like a cheap umbrella in a hurricane. The desperation really ramped up around message 25 when Julia's voice took on that edge that happens when someone's trying not to cry, but also trying not to scream. I don't understand why you're not answering. This isn't like you. You always answer when I call. Always. Something must be wrong with your phone, right? Because you wouldn't just ignore me, not when we need you like this. Ryan's talking about canceling the whole thing. And if he does, everyone's gonna know this was a disaster. Everyone's gonna know we couldn't even throw a simple barbecue without everything falling apart. We couldn't throw a simple barbecue because apparently, even when I wasn't invited to the planning meeting, I was still somehow responsible for the execution. Even when they'd collectively decided my birthday wasn't worth showing up for, I was still expected to be on standby for damage control. By message 30, Julia had moved past desperation and straight into that territory where panic meets rage and produces something truly spectacular. You know what? Fine, don't answer. But when your daughter asks why her father couldn't be bothered to help save her uncle's party, I'll tell her the truth. I'll tell her that you were too petty and childish to put aside your hurt feelings for one night. I'll tell her that when your family needed you, you decided to punish everyone by disappearing My daughter, she was bringing Sophie into this now, weaponizing my relationship with my kid to guilt me into cleaning up their mess because nothing says family values like using your teenager as emotional blackmail. But the real masterpiece came in message 47, where Julia's voice cracked just enough to let me know she was either crying or doing a damn good impression of it. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how to fix this. Everyone keeps looking at me like I should have answers. Like I should know where you are and why you're not helping. Your brother is about to have a complete meltdown. Your parents are asking if something happened to you. And I'm standing here feeling like the worst wife in the world because I can't even get my own husband to answer his phone. The worst wife in the world. Finally, something we could agree on. After listening to Julia's 47-message symphony of desperation, I did what any reasonable person would do. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon, sat my ass down in my favorite chair, the one Julia always complains makes the living room look uncoordinated, but is comfortable enough to die in, and took a long, hard look at the pattern that had been playing out right under my nose for years. See, here's the thing about being the reliable one in the family. You become invisible in the most spectacular way possible. You're simultaneously the most important person in the room and the least interesting. You're the guy everyone calls when the shit hits the fan, but nobody thinks to invite when they're planning something fun. You're basically a human Swiss Army knife. Incredibly useful, completely taken for granted and stored in a junk drawer until needed. Ryan, on the other hand, has been the golden boy since he learned to walk. And I mean literally since he learned to walk. The kid took his first steps at 9 months old. And you would have thought he'd just cured cancer based on the way Mom and Dad carried on. Me. I've been walking for 2 years at that point. But apparently that wasn't newsworthy anymore. First, kids break ground. Second, kids just follow the path that's already been paved. That pattern has been playing out ever since. When Ryan graduated high school by the skin of his teeth, and I mean barely. The kid had to take summer school just to get his diploma. Mom threw him a party that would have made a lottery winner jealous. When I graduated valedictorian 3 years earlier, we went to Applebee's. Applebee's because apparently academic excellence deserves the same celebration as a Tuesday night dinner special. College was more of the same. Ryan dropped out after 2 semesters, claiming he needed to find himself, which apparently required a 6-month backpacking trip through Europe that Dad happily funded. When he came back with nothing but a questionable tattoo and an even more questionable accent, everyone acted like he'd returned from some noble vision quest instead of what it actually was. An expensive quarter-life crisis funded by parental enablement. Meanwhile, I was grinding through 4 years of business school, working 2 part-time jobs to pay for textbooks and ramen noodles, making Dean's List every semester while Ryan was finding himself in Amsterdam coffee shops. Did anyone throw me a party when I graduated? Magna cum laude? Take a wild guess. Mom made a nice dinner. Dad gave me a firm handshake. And Ryan was too hungover from his welcome home celebration to even show up. The business failures were the real kicker, though. Ryan has started exactly 3 businesses in his adult life, and all 3 have crashed and burned like the Hindenburg having a bad day. First was the food truck venture. Yeah, the irony of Julia wanting me to call Miguel wasn't lost on me, which lasted exactly 6 months before Ryan discovered that running a business requires things like getting up early and keeping track of money and actually showing up consistently. When that folded, who do you think Dad called to help clean up the financial mess? If you guessed the son who actually knows how to balance a checkbook, you'd be right. I spent 3 weekends going through Ryan's disaster of a filing system. trying to sort out vendor payments and tax obligations, while Ryan nursed his wounded ego at various happy hours around town. Business number 2 was even better. A landscaping company that Ryan started with his buddy Jake from high school. These two geniuses managed to kill more grass than they planted, showed up to jobs with equipment that barely functioned, and somehow convinced themselves they could run a business based entirely on good vibes and working when we feel like it. Spoiler alert, the market wasn't particularly interested in their feelings. When that venture inevitably imploded, guess who got the panicked phone call about small claims court and angry customers? Guess who spent his own money on a lawyer to keep Ryan from getting sued into oblivion? Guess who never got paid back for that lawyer despite repeated promises that the money was definitely coming next month? And the third business, Jesus Christ, the third business was a masterpiece of delusion. Ryan decided he was going to be a social media influencer. Not for any particular skill or talent, mind you, but because he'd seen some 22-year-old making bank by posting videos of himself eating cereal. Ryan spent $2,000 of mom and dad's money on camera equipment and ring lights, set up what he called his content studio in their basement, and proceeded to create exactly 17 videos that collectively garnered about as much attention as a mime at a death metal concert. But here's what really gets me. Through all of this, through every failed venture and harebrained scheme, Mom and Dad never stopped believing in Ryan's potential. Every failure was just a learning experience. Every disaster was proof that he was gaining valuable life skills. Meanwhile, I was building a successful financial planning practice, buying my first house, getting married, having a kid. You know, boring adult stuff that doesn't come with participation trophies. And Julia, don't even get me started on Julia. When we first started dating, she seemed impressed by my stability, my ambition, my ability to plan more than 5 minutes into the future. She used to joke that I was the adult in her life, the guy who could handle the boring but important stuff while she figured out what she wanted to do with her career. But somewhere along the way, stable became boring and responsible became predictable. Ryan's chaos started looking like adventure. His spontaneity became charming instead of irresponsible. His complete inability to plan ahead transformed from a character flaw into a refreshing approach to life. I watched it happen in real time over the years. Family gatherings where Julio would light up when Ryan walked in, laughing at his stories about whatever ridiculous situation he'd gotten himself into lately. She'd hang on every word of his latest get-rich-coup scheme, while I sat there like a piece of furniture, occasionally offering practical advice that nobody wanted to hear. Sophie fell under his spell too, because of course she did. Uncle Ryan was the fun one, the one who showed up with inappropriate gifts and taught her things I'd specifically asked him not to teach her. Uncle Ryan didn't lecture her about homework or responsibility or thinking about her future. Uncle Ryan just wanted to have a good time. And what 16-year-old doesn't want to be around that energy? So, here I was, sitting in my uncoordinated chair, sipping bourbon that cost more than Ryan's last business plan was worth. Finally seeing the whole picture with painful clarity. I wasn't the overlooked son, the underappreciated husband, the boring father. I was the foundation they all built their lives on, the stable ground they took for granted while they reached for more exciting things. And they just spent my birthday proving exactly how little that foundation meant to them when push came to shove. You know what they say about revenge being a dish best served cold? Well, they're right. But what they don't tell you is that the best revenge starts with proper documentation. And brother, did I have documentation? After sitting in that chair for 3 hours, nursing bourbon and clarity in equal measure, I did what any self-respecting financial planner would do. I got organized. First stop was my phone. Those 52 missed calls weren't just evidence of Julia's panic. They were timestamps of betrayal, a digital paper trail showing exactly when my family's priorities became crystal clear. But the real treasure was in those voicemails. 47 separate audio files of Julia's voice, getting progressively more desperate. Each one a perfect little capsule of how quickly family loyalty turns into fix my problems when the chips are down. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, playing each message back and taking notes like I was preparing for the world's most depressing deposition. Message 12. Julia admits she told everyone I would know what to do about their catering disaster. Message 18. She reveals that people are leaving Ryan's party, and it's becoming a social embarrassment. Message 25. The first time she tries to guilt me using Sophie. But here's the beautiful thing about people in crisis. They tell the truth. When Julia was panicking about their failed party, she wasn't thinking about how her words might sound later. She was just being honest about what she really thought of me. The reliable fix-it guy who should drop everything to save their asses. Even after they collectively decided my birthday wasn't worth showing up for. I saved every single voicemail to my computer, backed them up to the cloud, and created a folder on my desktop labeled for later. Because if there's one thing 20 years in financial planning has taught me, it's that documentation is everything. People can lie about what they said, what they meant, what they intended. But digital files don't have selective memory. Next, I dove into the social media rabbit hole because if you really want to understand how people feel about you, watch what they post when they think you're not paying attention. Facebook was a goldmine of hypocrisy. Julia's page was littered with photos from Ryan's epic barbecue, all posted in real time while I was sitting alone at Marcelos's. The timestamps were perfect. 7:23 p.m. Julia posting a selfie with Ryan, both of them grinning like idiots with the caption, "Family fun time." Right around the time she should have been sitting across from me at dinner. 7:45 p.m. A group shot of everyone at the party, including Mom, Dad, and Sophie, all looking like they were having the time of their lives, posted exactly when she would have been listening to Giovanni sing happy birthday to me and my makeshift family of co-workers. But the real kicker was the 8:30 p.m. post, a picture of the empty catering tables with the caption, "When your food truck breaks down, but family comes first." Red art, Lafrenagre BBQBQBQ fail. Family Time posted literally minutes before she started that panicked calling spree trying to drag me into their mess. Family comes first. I screenshot that one about 6 times because the irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Sophie's Instagram was even better because teenagers have zero filter and even less awareness of consequences. Her story from that night was a chronological breakdown of my family's betrayal, told in the casual, thoughtless way that only a 16-year-old can manage. First post, Uncle Ryan's party is going to be lit. Fire, fire, fire with a picture of the party setup. Posted at 6:15 p.m., 45 minutes before my birthday dinner was supposed to start. Second post, why is the food truck broken though? Loudly crying face at 7:52 p.m. with a picture of the sad, empty serving tables. Third post, Mom's freaking out about Dad, LOL, at 8:35 p.m. No picture, just text. But the timing lined up perfectly with Julia's voicemail meltdown. The beauty of Instagram stories is that they disappear after 24 hours unless you save them. So I saved them, every single one screenshot, and filed away in my growing collection of digital evidence. But the crown jewel of my documentation came from an unexpected source. Mom's Facebook page. See, Mom might be technologically challenged enough to accidentally post photos of her thumb on a regular basis. But she's also the family historian. Every gathering, Every celebration, every moment she thinks deserves preserving gets posted with the kind of detailed captions that would make a museum curator proud. And there it was, posted at 9:15 p.m. on the night of my birthday. A long rambling post about Ryan's wonderful barbecue party that included this particularly damning paragraph. So proud of my Ryan for organizing such a lovely gathering. Even though we had some food troubles, truck broke down, everyone pulled together to make it special. Sometimes the best memories come from the unexpected moments. Wish our other son could have been here to help out. But I'm sure he had his reasons. Family is everything, Redheart. Wish our other son could have been here to help out. Not wish he could have been here to celebrate with us or hope he's having a nice birthday. No, she wished I could have been there to help out to fix their problems to be useful. And the kicker, I'm sure he had his reasons. Like choosing to attend my own birthday dinner was some kind of petty rebellion instead of, the normal thing a person does on their birthday. I screenshot that post too, along with all 37 comments from relatives and family friends, expressing sympathy for Ryan's tough night and praising his positive attitude in the face of adversity. Not one single comment asking where I was or wishing me happy birthday. Not one person in my extended family even mentioning that it was my birthday. But wait, it gets better. Because Dad, bless his oblivious heart, had left his own comment on Mom's post. Ryan handled it like a champ. Proud of both my boys, even if one couldn't make it tonight. Maybe next time he'll prioritize family over whatever else he had going on. Maybe next time he'll prioritize family. I was prioritizing family. My actual birthday, the one they'd all known about for months. But apparently my birthday wasn't family enough compared to Ryan's impromptu barbecue disaster. I saved that one too. Right next to the voicemails and Instagram stories and Facebook photos. Every piece of evidence carefully filed away, time-stamped, and cross-referenced like I was building a legal case. Because maybe I was. The final piece of my documentation came from an unexpected source. My credit card statements. See, I'd paid for that birthday dinner at Marcellos's, obviously, but I'd also picked up the tab for my colleagues and the Hendersons. 47 people had been invited to celebrate with me that night, but only 5 had shown up. And I'd ended up buying dinner for everyone because that's what you do when you're the responsible one. $347 for a birthday dinner that my own family couldn't be bothered to attend. I printed out that receipt and added it to my folder, not because I expected anyone to reimburse me, but because it was tangible proof of exactly how much my birthday had been worth to them. I sat back and looked at my laptop screen at the folder labeled for later that now contained months of screenshots, hours of audio recordings, printed receipts, and social media posts that painted a crystal clear picture of exactly how my family really felt about me. I didn't know exactly how I was going to use this evidence yet, but I knew one thing for certain. When the time came, I'd be ready. Here's the thing about living with people who've fundamentally written you off. They get really comfortable with their disrespect. It's like they've collectively decided that you're too nice, too stable, too goddamn reliable to ever call them on their so they just keep piling it on until you're basically a human doormat with a mortgage and a 401k. The weeks after my birthday were a masterclass in gaslighting, disguised as normal family life. Julia slipped back into our routine like nothing had happened. Making coffee in the mornings and asking about my day like she hadn't spent my birthday frantically trying to drag me into cleaning up someone else's mess. She'd kiss my cheek when she left for work, text me about picking up groceries on the way home, and curl up next to me in bed at night like we were still the same couple we'd been before she'd chosen barbecue over birthday cake. The really impressive part was how she managed to never actually acknowledge what had happened, Not once did she apologize for missing my dinner. Not once did she explain why Ryan's last-minute party had suddenly become more important than the celebration we'd been planning for weeks. She just acted like it hadn't happened. Like my birthday was some minor scheduling conflict that we'd all move past instead of a fundamental betrayal that had shown me exactly where I ranked in her list of priorities. Sophie was even more impressive in her ability to pretend everything was normal. She'd bounce into the kitchen in the mornings, grab her usual breakfast of whatever sugary cereal was currently fashionable, and chat about school drama or friend gossip like she hadn't spent my birthday posting Instagram stories about how much fun Uncle Ryan's party was. The girl could look me straight in the eye and ask me to drive her to the mall. Apparently, seeing no irony in asking favors from the father, she ditched for better entertainment. But the real artists were my parents. Mom called me 3 days after my birthday. Not to apologize, mind you, but to tell me all about Ryan's wonderful party and how sorry she was that the food situation had been such a disaster. She spent 20 minutes detailing every moment of Ryan's barbecue catastrophe, like she was giving me a play-by-play of the Super Bowl, apparently oblivious to the fact that she was describing the event she'd chosen over her own son's birthday celebration. "Your brother handled it so well," she gushed, her voice full of that maternal pride that I hadn't heard directed at me since. Well, I couldn't remember when. Even when everything went wrong, he kept everyone's spirits up. You would have been proud of him. You would have been proud of him, not "we missed you" or "we're sorry we couldn't make your dinner." No. She wanted me to be proud of Ryan for gracefully handling the disaster that had ruined the party they'd all chosen over me. Dad was even more direct in his revisionist history when I saw him the following weekend, because apparently I was still expected to show up for family obligations despite being persona non grata when it came to actual celebrations. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Sorry we missed your dinner, son. But you understand how it is when family needs you. Family needs you." Like Ryan's poorly planned barbecue was somehow more family than his older brother's birthday. Like showing up for me would have been nice, but optional. While rescuing Ryan from his own incompetence was a sacred duty that superseded all other obligations. The beautiful thing was how seamlessly they'd all coordinated this narrative without apparently discussing it. Ryan was the victim of unfortunate circumstances who'd handled adversity with grace. They were the loyal family members who'd rallied around him in his time of need. And I was what? The understanding brother who'd naturally stepped aside so they could focus on the real crisis. But here's what they didn't count on. I was done being understanding. I started small because the best revenge is always subtle revenge. When Julia asked me to pick up dry cleaning, I forgot. When Sophie needed a ride to her friend's house, I was suddenly too busy with work. When Mom called asking if I could help Dad fix his computer, I developed a mysterious inability to find time in my schedule. "You've been so distant lately," Julia said one night, sitting on the edge of our bed while I read a book that was infinitely more interesting than whatever conversation she wanted to have. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said, not looking up from my pages. "Just busy with work." Work became my excuse for everything. Work was why I couldn't attend Ryan's next gathering. Work was why I missed Dad's birthday dinner. Oh, the irony was delicious. Work was why I was suddenly unavailable for all those little favors and fixes that had somehow become my full-time unpaid job. The thing is, work actually was keeping me busy, but not in the way they thought. I'd started taking on bigger clients, more complex cases, building relationships with people who actually valued what I brought to the table. My practice was growing. My income was increasing. And for the first time in years, I was being appreciated by people who mattered. I landed the Morrison account in June. A tech executive looking to restructure his entire financial portfolio after a successful IPO. The kind of high-stakes, high-reward client that most financial planners dream about. The kind of deal that required late nights, weekend meetings, and the sort of attention to detail that had always made me good at my job, but apparently boring at parties. When I told Julia about the Morrison deal, about how it was going to significantly increase our household income and set us up for early retirement, she nodded absently and said, "That's nice, honey. Hey, Ryan's thinking about starting another business. Maybe you could help him with the financial planning. Maybe you could help him with the financial planning. I just landed the biggest client of my career, potentially changing our entire financial future." And her response was to suggest I donate my expertise to her brother-in-law's next inevitable failure. That's when I realized something that should have been obvious years earlier. They didn't see me as successful. They saw me as useful. My achievements weren't accomplishments to be celebrated. They were resources to be shared with people who mattered more. The Morrison account led to the Pritchard account, which led to the whole Westfield development portfolio. By August, I was handling more money than I'd ever imagined. Working with people who treated me like the expert I'd always been, but had never been acknowledged as. My calendar was packed with meetings, consultations, and strategy sessions with clients who hung on my every word because they understood that my advice could make or break their financial futures. And my family, they barely noticed. Julia complained that I was working too much. Sophie rolled her eyes when I couldn't drive her somewhere because I had a client call. Mom asked when I was going to take a break from all that business stuff and spend some quality time with the family. Quality time with the family. The same family that had collectively decided my birthday wasn't worth attending. The same people who saw my success as an inconvenience that kept me from being available for their convenience. That's when I started planning Ryan's next lesson in consequences. There's something absolutely poetic about watching someone dig their own grave with a party planning shovel. Ryan's family barbecue to-in announcement came in early July, delivered with all the fanfare of someone who'd learned absolutely nothing from his previous disaster. This time he was going big, and I mean Vegas Wedding Chapel Elvis impersonator big. The family group text lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve when Ryan shared his grand vision. Lake Harmony Lodge, one of those rustic, chic venues that cost more per day than most people's monthly mortgage payments. Professional catering, a live band, activities for the kids, and enough alcohol to float a small yacht. The biggest family party of the year, he proclaimed, complete with enough exclamation points to power a small city. "This is going to be amazing," Julia texted back, because apparently caps lock is the appropriate response to financial irresponsibility disguised as family bonding. "Can't wait," Sophie chimed in, probably already planning her Instagram story strategy. "So proud of my boy for bringing the family together," Mom added, because watching your adult son throw money he doesn't have at a party he can't afford is apparently grounds for maternal pride in the Johnson family handbook. I sat in my office looking at this digital circle jerk of enthusiasm on my phone screen and felt something that was part amusement, part anticipation, and part the cold satisfaction that comes from watching your enemies line up their own dominoes for you to knock down. Because here's what they didn't know. I'd been busy, really busy. While they were all pretending my birthday betrayal had never happened, I'd been building something beautiful. A network of contacts, clients, and professional relationships that extended far beyond my little corner of the financial planning world. Miguel from Wheels of Steel Taco Company. Yeah, we'd stayed in touch. Turns out helping a guy save his business creates the kind of loyalty that money can't buy. And Miguel had friends, other food truck operators, catering companies, event planners, people who talk to each other, who share information, who remember favors. The Morrison account had connected me with tech executives who knew marketing directors, who worked with social media managers, who understood exactly how information flows in the digital age. The Pritchard deal had introduced me to lawyers who knew journalists, who understood the art of strategic communication, and the Westfield development portfolio, well, that had given me access to the kind of people who could make or break someone's reputation with a few well-placed phone calls. Ryan had scheduled his epic family gathering for Saturday, August 15th, a full year and 3 weeks after he'd hijacked my birthday. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd spent an entire year basking in the glory of his first party disaster, retelling the story of how he'd pulled everyone together and made the best of a bad situation, turning his colossal failure into some kind of heroic family legend. But this time was going to be different. This time, I was ready. I started my campaign on Monday morning, exactly 5 days before Ryan's big event. Not with some dramatic confrontation or angry outburst. That's amateur hour stuff. No, I started with a simple email to my network. Professional, calm, matter of fact. The subject line read, "Sharing some context on family dynamics." The body was a masterpiece of understated devastation. I didn't rant or rave or sound bitter. I simply shared the facts supported by all that beautiful documentation I'd been collecting. Screenshots of Julia's social media posts from my birthday, time-stamped to show exactly when she'd been having fun at Ryan's party instead of attending my dinner. Audio files of her voicemails demonstrating the panic and desperation when Ryan's first party fell apart and they needed me to fix it. But the real kicker was Mom's Facebook post, the one where she'd wished I could have been there to help out. Instead of celebrating my own birthday, I'd annotated it like a legal document, highlighting the key phrases that revealed exactly how my family saw me. Not as someone to celebrate, but as someone to use. I sent this package to select people in my professional and personal network. Not everyone. That would have been overkill. Just the right people. Clients who'd become friends, colleagues who knew me well enough to understand the context. Neighbors who'd been at my birthday dinner and had seen the empty chairs with their own eyes. The beautiful thing about truth is that it spreads itself. You don't need to push it or promote it or convince people to believe it. You just need to present it clearly, and people draw their own conclusions. By Wednesday, the ripple effects were starting. The Hendersons mentioned to the Petersons how they'd witnessed my family's no-show at my birthday. The Petersons told the Johnsons, who told the Millers, who happened to know several people who'd been invited to Ryan's big lakeside extravaganza. Miguel, bless his entrepreneurial heart, shared the story with his network of food service providers, not out of malice, but out of genuine disbelief that anyone would treat family that way. Word spread through the catering community like wildfire. The Johnson family were the kind of people who'd abandon their own son's birthday celebration, then panic call him to fix their problems when their own event fell apart. By Thursday, my story had reached the social media managers and marketing directors in my professional network. These people understood narrative, understood how perception shapes reality in the digital age. They didn't do anything dramatic. They just shared the story with their own networks, framing it as an example of how some families prioritize image over substance. But the masterstroke came Friday morning, 18 hours before Ryan's party was scheduled to begin. I'd saved the best for last. A carefully curated package of evidence sent to every single person who'd been invited to Ryan's lakeside celebration. Not just my family's evidence, but context. Screenshots showing the timeline of events from my birthday. Audio clips of Julia's increasingly desperate voicemails. Social media posts proving that they'd all chosen Ryan's first party over my birthday, then expected me to bail them out when it failed. The message was simple. Thought you should know what kind of people you're celebrating with this weekend. I sent it at 8:47 a.m. On Friday, just as people were checking their phones with their morning coffee, planning their weekend, getting excited about Ryan's big party. Then I sat back and waited for the consequences to unfold. You know what they say about history repeating itself. Sometimes it doesn't just repeat. Sometimes it comes back with interest compound annually and delivers a return on InvestMeNT that would make Warren Buffett weep with joy. By 3:00 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, exactly 24 hours after I'd sent my truth bombs into the digital stratosphere, my phone started buzzing with the familiar rhythm of panic that I'd heard once before. Almost exactly 1 year ago. Except this time, I was ready for it. This time, I was sitting in my backyard with a cold beer, my laptop open to the folder labeled Mission Accomplished, watching the beautiful chaos unfold in real time through social media notifications and increasingly frantic family communications. The first sign that my plan was working came from an unexpected source: the Lake Harmony Lodge's Instagram account. They posted a cheerful welcome to the Johnson family celebration message at noon, complete with photos of their beautifully decorated pavilion and professionally arranged buffet tables. By 2:30 p.m., they'd quietly deleted the post. By 3:15 p.m., they'd posted a generic, beautiful Saturday at the lodge message with no mention of any specific event. That's when my phone started its familiar dance of desperation. Julia, call number 1. I watched her name light up the screen, that same smiling photo from our anniversary dinner, and took a long, satisfying sip of my beer. Ryan, call number 2, then 3, then 4. Mom calls 5 through 8 because apparently panic makes her forget that leaving 4 voicemails in a row isn't actually more effective than leaving 1. The beautiful thing about being prepared for chaos is that you can actually enjoy it. I'd learned my lesson from last year's birthday disaster. This time, I wasn't going to sit there wondering what was happening. This time, I had front row seats to the whole spectacular collapse, courtesy of the digital age and my carefully cultivated network of information sources. Miguel texted me at 3:22 p.m. Dude, what the hell happened to your brother's party? Just got a call canceling the backup catering I wasn't even officially hired for. Something about changed circumstances. Sarah from my office, remember Sarah with the gas station wine, sent me a screenshot at 3:35 p.m. Someone in her neighborhood Facebook group had posted asking if anyone knew the real story about the Johnson family drama because apparently the gossip had reached suburban social media faster than a wildfire in drought season. But the real entertainment came from watching Ryan's social media accounts. The man had been posting updates about his epic family gathering all week, building anticipation like he was promoting a major concert. Photos of the venue scouting, videos of him explaining his vision for the perfect family celebration, countdown posts with inspirational quotes about the importance of bringing people together. At 3:47 p.m., he posted a single line: "Due to unforeseen circumstances, today's event has been postponed. Thanks for understanding." Unforeseen circumstances, like the consequences of your own actions, are some kind of natural disaster that nobody could have predicted. The comments on that post were a masterclass in social media shot and Freude. People asking what happened, expressing concern, offering help, but also increasingly people who'd clearly heard the real story and were asking pointed questions about family loyalty and priorities. Hope everything's okay. Though I heard there was some drama about birthdays. Posted someone named Jennifer, who I didn't recognize, but who apparently had excellent sources, unforeseen or just consequences. Posted Dave Patterson, one of my clients who'd obviously received my Friday morning information package and decided he had some thoughts to share. My phone had reached 37 missed calls by 4:00 p.m., distributed across all the usual suspects. Julia was leading the pack with 14 attempts, followed by Ryan with 11, Mom with 8, and even Dad with 4. which was remarkable considering Dad usually communicates exclusively through grunts and disappointed looks. That's when Sophie finally joined the party. Call number 38 came from my daughter, and for just a moment, I felt a tiny pang of something that might have been guilt. Sophie was 16, caught in the middle of adult dysfunction, probably confused and embarrassed by whatever social media nightmare was unfolding around her friends. But then I remembered her Instagram story from my birthday. Uncle Ryan's party is going to be lit. Fire, fire, fire posted while I was sitting alone at Marcelos's, waiting for family that never showed. Call 38 went unanswered, just like the 37 before it. The voicemails started piling up like snow in a blizzard, each one a little more desperate, a little more revealing than the last. I didn't listen to them immediately. Part of the joy was letting them accumulate, letting the panic build to a crescendo before I finally tuned in to hear what they had to say. But Julia's texts were immediate and increasingly frantic. Call me right now. Whatever you think you're doing, stop. People are leaving. Everyone's asking questions. What did you do? This is our family you're destroying. Our family. Our family. The same family that had collectively decided my birthday wasn't worth showing up for, but now suddenly belonged to both of us when it was falling apart. By 5 p.m., my phone showed 51 missed calls, and I decided it was time for the grand finale. I poured myself another beer, opened my laptop, and started listening to the voicemails in chronological order, like a connoisseur sampling of fine wine that had been aging to perfection. Julia's first message was all fake, calm, and damage control. Hey, honey, there's been some kind of misunderstanding about Ryan's party. Can you call me back so we can clear this up? Some people are saying they received some kind of email, and I'm sure it's all just a big mix-up. A big mix-up, like accidentally sending documented evidence of their betrayal was some kind of technical glitch instead of a deliberate choice. Ryan's messages were more direct. What the Mike's man? What the Mike's did you do? People are canceling. The caterer wants to know if we're still having the party and Mom's crying. Call me back. Mom's crying. Well, that was new. In all my years of being the reliable, overlooked, taken, forented son, I'd never managed to make Mom cry. But apparently facing the consequences of treating me like garbage was emotionally challenging for her. Dad's voicemails were the most interesting because Dad doesn't usually do emotional expression beyond mild disappointment and occasional pride in Ryan's latest failure. But desperation had apparently unlocked a whole new range of paternal communication. Son, I don't know what's going on, but your mother is beside herself. People are calling asking about some kind of family drama, and Ryan's party is falling apart. I know we haven't always. Look, can you just call us back? Please, please. When was the last time my father had said please to me about anything? But the real masterpiece came in voicemail 43, when Julia finally dropped all pretense and revealed exactly what this was really about. You want to destroy our family because you're upset about a birthday party? A birthday party? You're willing to humiliate us in front of everyone we know because we missed one dinner. This is insane. This is cruel. And this isn't the man I married. The man I married was better than this. He was mature enough to handle disappointment without burning everything down out of spite. The man she married, the reliable fixer, the understanding doormat, the guy who would swallow his hurt feelings and show up anyway when they needed something. The man who would prioritize their comfort over his own dignity, who would smile and pretend everything was fine while they treated him like he didn't matter. She was right. The man she married would never have done this. But that man was gone, replaced by someone who understood his own worth and wasn't afraid to defend it. I finished my second beer, closed my laptop, and walked into my kitchen to cut myself a piece of leftover birthday cake. Yes, I still had some in the freezer from last year because apparently I'm sentimental about my own disasters. As I sat at my kitchen table eating cake that was exactly 1 year old, my phone buzzed one more time. Call number 52? Julia again. I looked at that familiar photo, that smiling face that had once represented love and partnership and shared dreams, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just a kind of peaceful emptiness, like the quiet after a storm has passed and washed everything clean. I turned off the phone and set it aside. Outside my window, the sun was setting on what should have been Ryan's epic family gathering. The party that was supposed to prove he could bring everyone together. The celebration that had cost him thousands of dollars and months of planning. Instead, it was just another Saturday evening, quiet and mine. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't the forgotten one, the overlooked son, the reliable husband who could be counted on to fix everyone else's problems while his own needs went unmet. I wasn't the foundation everyone else built their lives on, while taking me completely for granted. I was the man who had walked away, the man who had chosen his own dignity over their convenience, the man who had smiled while they choked on the consequences of their own choices. And that smile, it wasn't for them anymore. It was mine.